Hi there, Randi Green here, and welcome to this little podcast where I am going to explain some of the words and ideas I put into this little created blog, where I will sketch out some of the main ideas behind the progression work, as well as why I have chosen to put it into the context I have chosen to put it into. And that's part of the first blog post where I explain a little bit about the background for this work. If you are going to push me into some already existing system of thought, well, then the most accurate one would technically be the one that later was known as the Buddhist teaching systems, that goes back to the original version of the system of thought that were handed to humanity through various teachers. Of the later ones we know as the Buddha, but these are ancient teachings that stem from teachers, the ancient teachers, that in a way are what we call an interactive holographic teaching system that is holographically arranged to work with the different levels of our energy system, which means the biofield is connected to the teachers that we refer to or have seen expressed inside the Buddhist teaching system. That is the original one, not the later ones, not Theravada, even though that is the one that gets closest to the original teachings, although the current version we have of it are interpretation systems done by later generations. The first teachings were oral and were given in classes or in sittings in front of the Buddha. And with that, we don't really know what he actually said, but we have accounts of what others understood he was saying and how they interpreted. And later on, after the original teachings were lost, we had the reviving of it through various people who claim to have been in contact with the teachers. We don't know this. This is hearsay, but we have many people on this planet in various systems of thoughts that have done their very best to express what we can do to adapt and rearrange and upgrade and transform and clear the distortions of our three lower fields, of which we have the biofield that's connected to the human DNA. Behind that, we have the original density one, or the outer domain reality energy system, a basic configuration for the organic vessel. Then we have the emotional field that's been distorted via different inserted alien technologies into what we now understand as the emotional field, but it was originally the vibrational field that works with vibration energy that goes into emitting a specific type of heart vibration that teaches us how to empathically understand other living beings as a result of the previous universal cycles, especially the third cycle, where many of the original humans and humanoids at that time had divided into two main branches of the original civilizations from the original worlds that came from these previous universal cycles, and the 12 universal lineages divided into groups of humanoids and groups of humans that decided to work differently. I mainly kind of say that the humanoids chose to base their evolving progression sciences or their continued journey for eternity based upon technology, whereas the true human races, as I call them, chose to work with their progression dynamics and their original energy fields within the concepts of only using consciousness and the ability to work with energy and consciousness to create what I have coined, or others have coined as well, but it is coined life force, although I explain it differently. The problem with these teachings are that they stem from the same original holographic information teaching system, and that is an interactive holographic teaching system that is tied to our original energy system. But to put the last piece of the three lower fields in here, we have the mental field that is also has come to be as it is due to inserted alien technology, and it's called in various systems the frequency fence, and it's called that because it is tied into the frequency energies that runs the neural network of the human brain. So we have the adaptation processes to clear these three lower fields of their energetic distortions that have come to be in our energy system, three lower fields due to these inserted types of technology. And the mental field is to be recalibrated and brought back into its original configuration as the radiation field, from where we can work with the different energy units of this universal structure. So we have the biofield that are linked to the third cycle energy units of the previous universal structures or systems. And we have the vibrational field that is one of the inventions that were brought into this universal structure as part of an attempt to solve the issues with the wars of the previous universal cycles. The vibrational field is meant to create an understanding and a sense and a perception, direct, clear sense and perception of the other being in front of us. We didn't have that in the last universal cycle. We were there, we were telepathic, we also had technology, we also had all of the skill sets of transforming energy units in the previous universal cycles, but we ended up segregating due to the laws of energetic and genetic affinity, and in many ways did not really conceptualize or understand what the other rounds were about, what the other lineages were about, and how we missed the point of how do we actually work together in understanding and knowledge of what needs to be done as a team and not as divided groups that were, instead of assisting each other in diversity, then ended up in chaos and claims of territory and began fighting each other instead of learning to work together. So the heart field was engineered and created, and that is part of the vibrational field so that we can resonate, vibrate out from the heart field via the timelines, find our peers, find the timelines that are in coherence and that are conducive for our energy work. That is our upgrading progression work within the different realms and the different universal cycles. And then the radiation field, the original ability to holographically work with and understand the energies of the higher order realms and levels of existence, which are typically handed over in different forms of code sequences. That's part of the original radiation field. And we understood that in the previous universal cycle. So we can say this universal cycle is a kind of an insert do-over cycle that were part of the newer sciences and different types of universal structures that were rebuilt and arranged for this purpose of working with the groups that in the last universal cycles kind of missed the point of evolution and kind of missed the point of why we are doing this work of progression. They got into the idea that it was about claiming territory, claim power, claim knowledge, claim rights to have this or that or whatever, being the right teaching system, being the correct way of understanding reality, being the only ones that knew everything, and the rest of us, we were just inferior, right? So that's kind of the superiority that it meant. Being sovereign meant to be the only one that knew the truth. They were the ascended master. These were the ones that knew everything, and these were the ones that knew better than the rest of us, right? So that's kind of where that's the kind of mindset that leads to war. The progressive humans all had a different approach to this. It's called the highest good of the many. We work to achieve what we need to achieve for the highest good of the many, even though sometimes it's difficult to see what is the highest good of the many. And for that reason, we created councils, we created different types of holographic information systems and holographic teaching systems and interactive simulation programs that would assist us in, okay, if this is what we need to do, then how would that play out? What result would come from that? What would be the end trajectory of our ways of working with energy? And with that, we came up with the idea for the highest good of the many, but also as if I can do this, others can do that too. That's called the first of many. So we began with that responsibility to look into, say, if I can do it, others can do it too. So is what I am doing for the highest good of the many, that's principle 1, which I talk about in the template science courses, as well as throughout the transition science courses. It's not about gaining power. It's not about using energy and consciousness for our own progression per se, but it is to learn to work with energy and consciousness to develop the reality field, to develop the worlds we are part of, and that for the highest good of the many within the common goal of collaboration. Not about standing sovereign because I am so good at doing this, but standing sovereign as part of a group so each and one of us can add to the diversity of realities, that can add new aspects to the consciousness potentials and add new aspects to the creational forces that the energy units technically are. And it's not just about adding technology, because in a way, consciousness technology is also technology. But there's a difference between taking technology and base it upon the third cycle energy units of the previous universal cycles, create what we call more solidified forms of technology, or use technology that's tied to consciousness and is an expression of our expanded field and its fields and expanded awareness potentials. And there are commonalities in the languages that we use, those of us who come from the original realms, that are talking within the language of the original civilizations. And this does not mean that we all are tied into the same background or the same civilizations or the same lineages. But it adds into the original version of the constructions we come from, the reality fields that we have sojourned and been part of, and the common language that we have developed to express these different experiences within different types of systems of thoughts that are now being mirrored into this reality field as humanity are now again standing in the next step of their evolutionary cycles, getting ready to step up and step out, getting ready to evolve, come back in line with what we're supposed to do, and there discover that the many, many centuries of being in oblivion has not been our best friend. On the contrary, now has led to a humongous and enormous amount of distortion in our biofield, our emotional field, and mental fields, that then clogs our possibility to reach the original higher order energy system, of which we are working through first 6 layers that were connected to the original biofield of density 1, leading into density 2, or the middle domains, where we would then work with the vibrational field so that we again could reconnect to the radiation field and the original holographic code systems, and yet again work with realities to transform these into their highest standards. And that goes with the understanding of how to use consciousness and energy to produce life force and life forms for the continued evolution of all the 12 lineages. And this is where we are today, and this is what we are to learn today. And there are many other teachers out there, and gurus and rabbis and priests and claims and teaching systems and systems of thoughts. And it all comes down to listening to our vibrational field. What do we resonate with? What works for us? Because if we are tied into or work with a teaching system that is not in congruency with, or not aligned with, or are incoherently not adapted or correct for our energy system, instead of growing via that teaching system, we then produce distortion. We get entangled into a web of information that is not suitable for our code sequences, that are not suitable for our vibrational field, and that is not suitable for our continuation of clearing our biofield to be able to reconnect to the original holographic units of this reality field, from where we again can step back in and begin the progression sciences as we were rightfully supposed to do so, and the ways we're supposed to do so here in the outer domain. So is it then the teachers, the priests, the leaders, the gurus, the rabbis, the teaching systems themselves that is off? Could be. None is really accurate in this reality, since it's all now so full of distortion. Thoughts are full of distortion. Emotions are full of distortions. Our biofield is full of distortion. Everything we are are in a way full of distortions. And that's part of the journey to discover what these distortions are, be it physically, emotionally, or mentally, and clear these out into the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. At the same time, we're also having different systems of thoughts that claims to have the keys to the heavens. They claim to have the right principles, the right systems of thoughts, and the right methods, and the right illustrations. And for some they are, and for others they are not. And this is again the level of discernment that we must take, that there is not just one teaching system. There were 12 different lineages, of which there were 12 different layers of energy, of the energy system, of which there were different realms, of which there were different forms of energy systems, of which there were different configurations. So there are multiple choices to go from. And how do we solve that weird equation of all of these possibilities? The answer is simple. In your specific energy system that is tied to your physical form as it is now, once you have cleared the biofield, the emotional field, the mental field, with whatever system you prefer to do so, as the different systems that are offered inside this reality, whether it's Buddhism or a New Age or the Kelontics or the esoterics or the Blavatsky teachings or the Kabbalah or the Buddhist, I have mentioned the Buddhist teaching, right, or the Christianity or Jewish teaching systems or the Mesopotamian teaching systems or whatever lineage or racial expression of the higher order sciences or the inner realms or the Guru teachings, the Hindu teachings, the Mahayana teachings. We can go on and on and on and on. They all carry traits of the original holographic teaching system. And as you work your way through all of these teaching systems, I can only recommend that you study as many as possible, not from the angle of they will give you the truth, but from the angle of where can we compare them? What are the synopses of these teaching systems? Where do they look similar and where do they deviate? And how do we discern between all of these teaching systems? And some of them are part of the alien agenda. Some of them are tied to factions that have put this information in using some of the original teaching systems, intercepted them with distortions, so that we have portions of these systems that are true and portions of them that are intercepted. We could call it interpolation of information that doesn't belong there. And this is what we call the more scholastic approach to the higher order sciences, that we also see it as sciences and approach it from an investigative angle of scientific improvement, scientific evolution, scientific in-depth scrutinizing these different theories. We could call them para theories of reality, as if they go beyond the general sciences and their conceptualization of what reality is. So our work in this is not to find the correct teaching system. Our work in this is to learn to critically approach all of the teaching systems, find the synoptic layers where they are similar, get rid of all the layers where they are dissimilar, or look into what is that difference? What does that mean, that difference? Does that difference tells us something? Is it then, as we also know from the material of, for instance, the Gospels, I have a bachelor degree in theology, where you look into the different Gospels and you say, well, some of the sayings here are similar. Where do they deviate? And why do they deviate? It's because it comes from a different faction. Does it come from a different type of Christianity? Does it come from different people? Is it due to variation in language, or is it something that's been put in when they rewrote the scriptures? The translator has translated it wrongly? And all of these questions need to be asked. The same with the inner information we get from the holographic teaching system or the higher order energy system behind our three level fields. This work is not about finding the truth. This work is about finding the understanding and the dynamics of how to work with consciousness, of how to work with energy and how to work with life force, so that it amplifies our consciousness potential, so it amplifies our ability to master and transform energy to their highest purity rate of the previous universal cycles, so that it produces that life force that enable us to move on, that enable us to continue our exploration journey as part of the outer domain, as part of this reality field. So there are no simple answers. There is not one system that is correct. There are multiple answers. There are multiple questions. So changing the perspective of trying to find the answers and the truths and the kings to the heavens, to the realms of that will get us into the higher awareness, is not just about understanding who are the aliens, not just about who are understanding who we are. It's not just about understanding what reality is. It is not to find the simple answers. It's to step into a process of progression. It is to step into a process of higher order sciences. It is a process of stepping into the ability to discern between different layers of information systems and teaching systems and energy systems. Because these are all tied together. Thoughts, emotions, abilities, the way of perceiving reality, way of working with reality, reality itself is energy. The way we work with energy, reality, others, self, what have you, is consciousness. And the goal of working with these two things is to create life force. And life force is the one that will be the foundational understanding of the next universal cycles. Similarly as the previous universal cycles, it was energy. And in these universal cycles, it's consciousness, how to work with consciousness and apply it to energy so that life force can be created. We continue the journey of progression through universal cycles, and each one of these 12 cycles in the domains, in the worlds, in whatever we choose to engineer and create, have different goals. And that's part of the process too. So when we go in and say, what are my goals of doing this work? We also ask, what are the goals of this system of thought? What does that lead to? What is it that will be derived from working with that system of thought? Is it personal gain and personal power? Or is it for the highest good of the many? And these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves when we begin the process of progression. Thank you.